gotta use IRs. Stop caps suck. The M cap block sucks even more. Wait, don't write off the M cap block just yet. In this video, I show my process and not just making it sound good, but great, coming up. Hello and welcome to the video. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Justin and I'm all about worship guitar. Please consider subscribing, hitting that bell notification button, and treating me to a coffee to support these videos and my ministry. Stick around to the end for a bonus where I share where to download the patches featured in this video. If we've met before, welcome back. From here on, everything I am about to share applies to the entire Line 6 amp modeling range, including the Helix, Stomp, and Pod Go. A fairly common question that pops up on the forums is, I just got a Helix, Stomp, Pod Go, what should I do first? No sooner has the OP's fingers left the keyboard do people reply with, check out these IRs. That's really jumping the gun on the whole tweaking experience. Look, I get it. We love IRs. There's no learning curve to it. You just load up an IR, test it out, and see if you like it. If you don't, just go on to the next one. That's fine if you have a small IR collection, but people will try to convince you to buy one of those IR packs that have hundreds of IRs. And this has happened to the best of us, right? You start out with an IR, you think you're okay with it, and you carry on to try a few more. And a few more, and then some more. And by the time you're on IR number 51, you've forgotten if you've liked IR number 3 or IR number 27. Let me share a secret to this potential waste of time. Try to tweak the stock amps and cabs. It's no secret of mine that I love the stock sound to the Line 6 product range. They come with your unit and they don't cost any additional money. Let's get started on my personal process. Step 1. Add a basic wet section. Let me suggest something potentially controversial. The amp tone is not the problem. What's the common complaint about stock sounds? It sounds dry and lifeless. That's an issue with the wet section, not the amp tone. Think about it. Aside from a recording studio where an amp might be encased in an isolation booth so that it's bone dry, we normally experience an amplifier interacting with its surrounding acoustic space, like bouncing off the walls with natural reverb. If you add some delay and reverb, you'll find that the amp tones sound much better than before. Here's what I do. I first add the delay and reverb that I intend to tweak at the end of the chain. The point here is to hear the M cap block in the context of an environment that has some spatial information, not bone dry. Step 2. Identify the cab and mic combination you need. Here's a warning that step 2 will take the most amount of time and practice to get right, and it will be a continual learning process. You actually have two totally significant choices to make the cab block: the choice of cab and the choice of microphone. Each cabin mic has its own unique signature, and it takes time and effort to go through how each cabin mic interacts not just with each other in the block, but also with the amp model that you've chosen. The goal here is to associate different sounds with different combinations and learning how to balance the tonal characteristics. In general, the physical size of the cab is going to correlate to the thinness, boxiness, or thickness of tone, and the microphone type is going to correlate to groups of frequencies that get accentuated. It really helps to read up on the actual cabs and mics that are modeled to get a feel for what potential combinations can work. For example, a big and boomy 4x12 cab with a bass-heavy R121 mic is not going to be a balanced tone off the bat. Here are my current go-to combinations. For P&W chime, I use 2x12 cabs that accentuate the mid-range munchiness from Vox and Maxus style amps. I start with a 2x12 silver bell, which seems to reach that spot faster than a 2x12 blue bell. But don't be afraid to try the 1x12 cabs too, which will sound boxier. To give the smaller cabs more girth, don't set an aggressive low pass. More on that later. The silver bell is already a slightly more trebly cab to begin with, so having mics that don't sweeten and tame the high end will make the tone stick out even more. I'd start with the 121 and 160 ribbon mics, which in real life do have the sweetening of the high end. But they also have this very pronounced bottom end if they're placed right at the speaker grill. So I usually pull the mic back to 4 inches and beyond, which will prevent the bottom end from building up too much. For P&W Rock, I don't immediately go for the giant 4x12 cabs like the Kelly V30, even though that's my favorite cab in real life. For that punch and liveliness of tone, it's not just a matter of speaker size, but its wattage and even speaker placement. I start with a 2x12 Match H30 and G25, paired with the 421 dynamic mic, which has a very nice mid-scoop. For something different, I tried the 2x12 Interstate, which is based off a cab that has the speakers vertically stacked. This results in a different resonance that could fit the bill of what's required. I also used the 4x10 Tweed P10R, a basement cab that, to my ears, is a starting point to getting the vintage Nigel hand-drop tone, which you can check out here. To summarize step 2, the point here is to be well acquainted with the different cab and mic combinations and recognize how they contribute to creating the sound in your head. Don't fret if you don't get it right the first time. This takes hours of getting acquainted with the sounds. Step 3, fine-tune the tone with EQ. For clarification, steps 2 and 3 can be done concurrently or sequentially. It helps that you put on a producer's hat instead of a guitar player's hat when fine-tuning, as you'll be answering these questions. Is the low end competing with the bass and the kick drum? Are the mids overshadowing the vocals and the piano? Is the top end bright enough to have that sparkle quality without being shrill? You may be a guitarist, but you're also a team player who serves together with other musicians. If you can appreciate how each of the instruments contributes sonically to the band as a whole, you'll be able to craft tones that better suit your worship team. What I like to do is to EQ my guitar tone in the context of a full mix, such as a recording from my church livestream. Alternatively, if I know my sound guy has a preference for tweet like Bethel or Hillsong, I know what a Bethel and Hillsong style tone that can work. You can check out my take on Bethel and Hillsong tones here. While EQing is a highly individualized process, I do have some starting points that I'll share here. Firstly, I'll use a parametric EQ and apply the low and high cut filters here and not the cat block. You could apply these on a cat block, but I think the EQ curves on the parametric EQ produce more musically useful results, if that makes sense. Secondly, I'll apply a subtractive EQ approach, which means that I don't boost, but I cut. To my ears, cutting sounds more natural than boosting. My first electric guitar teacher always said that it's easier to take things out of a sound than it is to add something that's not there. Here's where knowing what the controls on a parametric EQ are. The Q parameter stands for quality and controls the shape of the EQ curve. High EQ values use steeper curves which affect a smaller range and allow you to pinpoint specific frequencies. Low EQ values affect a wider range of frequencies and tend to sound more gentle when used subtly. I target the boom and thump frequencies that compete with the bass and kick at around 150 to 200 Hz with a high Q, and bring those down by about 2 to 3 decibels. I then target the 3.5 to 4 kHz with a low Q to introduce a smiley face EQ by bringing that down to 2 or even 4 dB. Yes, I like the smiley face EQ probably because the guitar ends up being gentle on the ears and it blends better with the rest of the band rather than stick out. But take note though, these frequencies are where the guitar's voice lives, so cutting too much of it will cause your guitar to disappear from the mix. Phew, that was a lot of information. To summarize, step 1. Add a basic wet section of your desired delay and reverb to give your guitar some sonic environmental context. Step 2. Find the ideal cab and mic combination that brings out the desired characteristics of the amp. Step 3. Fine-tune the tone with EQ. As previously mentioned, you could follow these steps in sequence or apply them concurrently, which I sometimes do. I run into situations where the reverb tone ends up being too dark and I have to swap it out in the middle of step 3. Or when I'm finally done and realize that there's too much mid-cut because of the 4:1 dynamic mic being used, and then I need to swap it out for a brighter microphone. Which brings us to today's question of the day and bonus. Do you use stock amp and cabs? If not, why? I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the tones you're hearing, these are from my Pot Go Worship Amp Essentials pack that I've put together using a variety of amps and effects that I use on a daily basis when working with worship music, both in the studio and live. I covered the 3 broad bases of amp tones, namely Vox, Fender, and Marshall type tones. The pack is available on my Buy Me a Coffee page as well as on my Weebly shop for those of you who transact via PayPal. It is my hope that these patches help accelerate your workflow so that you end up creating and worshipping more. That's it from me, thanks for watching this video. If you've gotten value out of it, share this video with someone whom you know is interested in tweaking tones for the Pod Go and HX Stomp. Until next time, I'm Justin, and I'm all about worship guitar.